Welcome to the Pulse with Peter B. I'm your host, Peter Biancamano. Let's get you to the pulse on everything you need to know. And today's show is sponsored by Rumble Boxing. Go visit our friends at 1202 Shipyard Lane and rumble at your own pace. And we're also sponsored by New Jersey Appleseed, giving people a voice while getting others to listen. And folks, the person to my right has been doing a lot of listening in the past few months and the past 8 years on the city council. And of course, that is Councilwoman-at-Large and Hoboken mayoral candidate, Emily Jabbour. So great to have you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Well, first, I want to say congratulations on your first place finish in the general election just a week and a half ago while this is airing. What do you have to say to your supporters for finishing first?
Sure. I'm so grateful. The turnout on November 4th was huge. We came in first place, not just for myself as the mayoral candidate, but also for my council slate. I'm so proud of them. I think that was a really clear message that the things that we talked about, the conversations we were having, really resonated in this community. So I'm very excited that we came in first.
Absolutely. But unfortunately, you do have to run. You know, nobody garnered the 50% of the votes. Maybe Hoboken will look into ranked choice voting a little later on. I was going to say.
I've advocated for, yes.
Exactly. And now you have a runoff election coming up on Tuesday, December the 2nd, against 3rd Ward Councilman Michael Russo, who finished in second. Emily, you came out swinging. I mean, you came out swinging with an ad, that was obviously, promoting yourself, but, a little negative towards Michael. Why did you decide to come out of the gates that way?
For me, it's important that people have all of the information. I think everything that was included in our comparative advertisement that went out was to put the facts on the record. And I know Councilman Fisher has also communicated some of those concerns in the universe. And I was hearing from voters that they weren't aware of some of the history. And I think sometimes in Hoboken, we forget that there has been a difficult history and a challenging history when it comes to transparency and good governance in the city. And a lot has been accomplished and a lot is on the line. So it's important to me that we are upfront with voters about what the stakes are involved in this election. And I'm hopeful to have good conversations to take on people's concerns. Obviously, there are people who I hope come back from other campaigns who might have supported other candidates who are going to be interested in having conversations with me and my candidates, and I'm excited to continue to listen to what people are talking about in this city.
No, yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned Councilwoman Fisher just this week. She did come out in support of your opponents. I'm sure there's going to be more endorsements down the line, but you did have 4 other candidates running for the mayoral race. Do you want to share anybody who might be supporting you in the near future?
Sure. Well, I'm very excited that former Mayor Dawn Zimmer came out with an endorsement this week. She was really the one who got me involved in local politics. 2017 didn't really turn out the way I initially had planned. She had been going to run a 3rd term and I was running with her. And that sort of changed. So having her voice added into this mix was really important to me. I've also had really good conversations with Dini Ajmani. She represented a very distinct, unique voice in this, climate of all the other council people involved. And we were actually supposed to work together in 2021. So it was kind of a funny coming together, but I'm really excited to have her support as well for December 2nd.
No, yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned former Mayor Dawn Zimmer. And, Dawn Zimmer in her endorsement letter for you was extremely negative towards the current mayor. I wouldn't say extremely negative, but slightly negative towards the current mayor, Ravi Bala. There is a stigma out there, Councilwoman, that you would be a continuation of the current mayor. And I think Dawn did a pretty good job of kind of, going against that stigma. But what do you have to say to people at home who you'd think that you're going to be a continuation of his current administration?
Sure. Well, I understand the concern. I ran with Mayor Bala in 2017 and in 2021. And at the time, for me, that was the right choice. I'm Emily Jabbour. I'm not Ravi Bala, and I have had a distinct track record that is all of my own in the last 8 years on the city council. We operate separately as legislators. I'm excited because I've had the opportunity to watch what has worked with this administration and what hasn't worked so well, and to take all of those lessons and put them to work with a different set of priorities for moving Hoboken forward.
Absolutely. I do want to cover some issues now because obviously, we still need to cover the issues that affect the Hoboken residents the most. You at the debates, our last debate, that the Pulse did with the Housing Authority, on a debate highlight show, we discussed a clear parking program in Hoboken. And I believe you said that the program was not initiated well. It was terribly initiated, like you said, but the merits of the program work. Now, there are small businesses on Lower Washington Street who are saying that their businesses are being affected by 10, 15, 20%. So, if elected as mayor, will you keep the clear clear program. I couldn't think of the word, excuse me. And how will you assist these businesses by keeping that program?
Sure. Well, I think the problem was in the rollout of this and the engagement and with the stakeholders, including the small business owners. And listen, I've been talking to people about this to hear out their concerns. But at the end of the day, our number one job in the city is to keep people safe. And there are very real safety implications with respect to the double parking practices. It's a deep-seated culture in Hoboken to do the double park move. I get it. But it really is something that we need to figure out how to better solve for. And if that means adding additional policies that can better address that, whether that's short-term parking added to our Main Street corridor to allow for people to grab and go in a different kind of way, we can do that. I'm excited to have the conversation, but I think when public safety is your main goal, you have to be willing to sometimes take on the challenges and have those conversations and educate the public about what that's all about.
No, absolutely. And another issue that we tackled at the debate was about taxes. Now, your opponent, Third Ward Councilman Michael Russo, in the December 2nd runoff, said that he can rein in spending by cutting all of these different directors and so on and so forth. And you spoke about value at the last debate. Do you think that your opponent can actually reduce spending by just cutting these directors? And, should people just be focused on value?
Well, for me, I think what's interesting is that, the council at the end of the day approves the budget. So really, Michael Russo's had over 20 years on the city council to put forward budget amendments that would reflect that sort of cut and saving, with at least respect to some of the things the city council can control. Now, understanding that he's been pointing to some of the directorships, that doesn't really move the needle that much. Our budget is over 3/4 composed of our public safety. So it's not really going to solve for that. And the point that I made is, for me, it's less about what you're going to do with the taxes necessarily. It's how you put those dollars to work. And I think the challenge that people are facing right now is they don't feel like that the city is actually being diligent about how we're using funds. We're not communicating well about what's going on at City Hall. We're not keeping our commercial corridor clean. We have to get on top of all of those things to make people feel like all of their tax dollars are being put to good work.
No, absolutely. So we have about a little over 2 minutes left. I'm wondering if you want to talk about your council slate. I mean, you were the only mayoral candidate where your full council slate has made the runoff. And obviously you need, support if elected mayor. If you want to just take a few minutes to talk about them.
Sure. My council slate represents a diverse set of experiences for Hoboken. And I think that's really important. And that's why voters were so supportive of our team. Caitlin Layson is a special education teacher who was born and raised in Hoboken. She's raising a young family. She's a renter. She has a unique voice in this campaign, I would say. Joe Quintero has been working with me on the council for the last 4 years. He's been really strong on rent protections as well and affordability in the city. And Steve Firestone is literally a finance expert. He is the chair of the business department at Drew University. He lives in Uptown Hoboken. He has a different set of experiences to bear. So I'm excited for all of us to work together. We're not always going to agree, but that's not the point. We want to challenge each other to grow and to figure out how to come to solutions that you may not have had on your own.
Absolutely. Well, we got a minute to go now, Councilwoman. If there's anything you want to tell the voters at home why they should entrust their vote to you on the December 2nd runoff. And folks, just a quick note at home, there is no early voting. You can only go vote in person on December 2nd or vote by mail. So I want to drop that.
Yeah.
But the floor is yours, Councilwoman.
Yes, I appreciate those reminders because I think the runoff is challenging in terms of turnout without having the early vote. And it's the Tuesday after Thanksgiving. A lot of people are going to be traveling out of town or potentially are going to get busy or sick after holidays. So I think people should make a plan to vote. Certainly vote by mail is a great option because if you're not out on December 2nd, that's your only shot. So I hope people make a plan. For me, I think I've had a very clear track record being the most responsive council member. It's really important to me whether I agree with you or not. I always let you know where I stand. I've been transparent about my record and honest with the voters of Hoboken. And I'm excited to continue listening and showing up for Hoboken in the next few weeks as people make their final decisions.
Well, Councilwoman-at-Large and, of course, Hoboken mayoral candidate Emily Jabbour. Folks, we do have our debate coming up on November 25th at the Hoboken High School Auditorium where it'll be Councilwoman Jabbour versus Councilman Russo. So you're not going to want to miss it there. So we'll see you then. But I'm sure I'll see you in the streets before then, correct?
You probably will. Yes.
And thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. All right, folks, we will be right back. Peter Biancamano here, your hostess with the mostest of the Pulse with Peter B. Folks, don't forget to follow and like our Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok pages. We're constantly updating those platforms with cool stories and awesome reels. Also, you want to subscribe to our YouTube channel where we post all of our full shows, and you can also binge watch all of our previous episodes. And if you would like to contact us, feel free to reach out to our email address at thepulsewithpeterb@gmail.com. We'll see you there. Welcome back to The Pulse with Peter B. Peter Biancamano still in the host chair, but just moved a few blocks south because we are joined by a person who's very familiar to The Pulse. He's been on, wow, this is like the third or fourth time in the last few months. And of course, that is 3rd Ward Councilman and Hoboken Mayoral candidate, Dr. Michael Russo. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks, Peter.
And congratulations. You made it to the next round, to the runoff. You were about a little over 500 votes away from finishing first, but of course, nobody made 50%, and we're moving on to the runoff. Why don't we start with that?
Sure.
How humbled were you by your results last week?
Look, we knew what our campaign was capable of doing. We went out, we executed our plan. We did exactly what we thought we were going to do. We knew we had a slight disadvantage with the 9 days of early voting, and that came to fruition in the results, but we're very, very confident of what the runoff's going to look like.
Absolutely. And your opponent has come out swinging. I mean, just a few days after the general election, I should say, 2 or 3 days, she came out with an ad that, half of it attacked you and half of it spoke about, her background and things like that. Were you surprised?
Yeah, I was surprised, actually. Look, I'll say this time and time again, right? I think there's 2 types of people in the world. Those that will stand on their morals and really articulate what their character are. At the end of the day, the other people will just burn it all down when they feel like something's slipping away. So I think she's exposed her character. And that's just where I stand on it, right? This campaign and I will continue to do exactly what we're doing. We're keeping it classy. I've made sure all of my running mates understand that. I've made sure that my entire team understands that. And I made sure that all my supporters out there understand that. And that's what we're going to do for the rest of this campaign.
Yeah, and I just want to look at a piece of her ad that was against you, and that was your donations from big developers and so on and so forth. I think it's important for the audience to know how you answer that.
Yeah, look, again, a lot of the people who donate to my campaign are longstanding relationships, right? I have relationships in this city for 30 plus years. Some of those developers that wrote a check to my campaign are people I grew up with. And I don't run away from that, right? Like, I'm a working class father of 4. I raise my money for my campaign. I don't have the ability to self-fund. So I'm going to continue to raise that money each and every time. I think it's really important to understand that all those people who donated to my campaign have buildings that are in the city of Hoboken. They want to see the city thrive. And they understand that going with someone like me in this election is moving the city forward. It's not the same old over the last 8 years.
Yeah, and they pay taxes and all that.
Absolutely.
And Michael, let's talk about endorsements. You've been racking them in here. I mean, what is it? 2 of your opponents now, are going to be, or have and are going to be endorsing you in Councilwoman Tiffany Fisher. And by the time this airs, probably Councilman Ruben Ramos and so on and so forth. What do you have to say that they're on Team Russo now?
Look, I think Team Russo from the start has talked about unifying our city. Right? We want to make sure that we continue to do that. I think one of my opponents who wound up in 3rd place in this election, she understands that. She and I have disagreed on things in the past. We'll probably continue to disagree on some things into the future. But that's what a city of Hoboken should expect of its elected leaders. It's really important that we have that diversity amongst our council members, amongst our administration, and really talking through the problems that we have in the city of Hoboken. I want to move this city forward. I do not want it to stay stagnant. It's been stagnant over 8 years, maybe even longer. And I don't want to see that happen into the future. We have a bright future ahead, and Team Russo is the team to do that.
Yeah. And Team Russo has now expanded. 2 of your 3 Council-at-Large candidates in the general election have moved on to the runoff.
Correct.
But you obviously are now joining forces with Liz Ortecho,
Yep.
who's running for Councilwoman-at-Large. What do you have to say about Liz?
Again, another phenomenal advocate for the city of Hoboken. She and I have also disagreed on certain things. I mean, Blue Violet being one of them, right? When it comes to cannabis in the city of Hoboken, that's something that we just have a philosophical difference on, and we'll continue to have that difference. But what I have to say about her ability is that she truly cares about the city of Hoboken, and we welcome her with open arms, and she welcomes us with open arms. And I think that's amazing, right? That is what unifying Hoboken looks like. We don't want to continue to be divisive. We want to make sure we're unifying the entire city of Hoboken, and that is the plan. That has always been the plan, and we'll continue to do that.
Yeah, and I did bring this up to Councilwoman Jabbour in the last segments. There are two clear different. Well, there's many differences, but two clear differences that we took out of the last debate that the Housing Authority ran and that the Pulse aired a highlight show on,
Sure.
which is the clear parking program
Yep.
and then taxes. Let's start with the clear parking program.
Sure.
Councilman Jabbour believes that the program it just was initiated terribly, but the program works for public safety factors. Do you believe that the clear parking program should be disbanded?
Yes, absolutely. I don't think, as a matter of fact, I don't think we have a clear mechanism to enforce those tickets. I don't think that the city of Hoboken did anything to ensure that there's a city ordinance on the books to allow for that automated enforcement of parking regulations. So from the beginning, I never thought that it was going to be an enforcement program. I always thought that it was an information program, and I continue to think that. Now, the administration chose to do what they did, and now we have to kind of backtrack, and we have to make sure that that clear program is not enforcing parking tickets. That is why we have parking enforcement agents. That is why we have police officers, and they are the people who should be doing that.
Interesting. And now we also spoke about taxes. This is something that is a big difference, I think, between the two of you.
Massive difference.
She feels that, looking at people get for their value and so on and so forth. You feel that there needs to be cuts in City Hall. But will the cuts in City Hall be enough to lower taxes?
Yeah, I think you need to restructure what City Hall looks like, right? I've talked about this a number of times. We don't need to be as top-heavy as we are. We have multiple directors. They have their own assistant directors, and then the assistant directors have their own assistants. I mean, this is asinine to me, right? We're not Jersey City. We're not New York City. We don't need that many top-heavy level people in the city of Hoboken to run the city effectively and efficiently. That is a massive change for me, right? I will make sure that we make that change on day one. When it comes to our spending in general, right? There are priorities in the city, and there are things that we all want, but that does not mean that we have to be wasteful. And I think over the last certainly 4 and even 8 years, we've been wasteful in certain areas. So again, we have many differences when it comes to our fiscal plans. Again, she has made many claims about how she thinks taxing the city and spending that money to the levels that we have are okay. I just don't believe that. I think people want more for less. I honestly, truly believe we could spend less money and still provide more services in the city of Hoboken.
Yeah, and I think it's important. We have a little under 90 seconds to go that we talk about, of course, the two members of your council slate that moved on with you to the runoff election, which is Nicole Magana and Pete Keeling. Why should people vote for them in the December?
Yeah, again, the same reason they voted for them in the first round, right? Nicole is a staunch advocate for affordable housing in the city of Hoboken, local realtor who understands both sides of that equation. She is involved on many levels when it comes to nonprofits in the city of Hoboken. She'll continue to do that. Peter Keeling, a local business person who understands, again, business, how it runs, how the city of Hoboken has many obstacles in the way of those businesses, and how we could reform that. So they have phenomenal resumes, and now we're pulling Liz into the equation. And as I said earlier, she's been a staunch advocate throughout the city on multiple issues, and we are aligned on a lot of those issues.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have just a few seconds left, but we want to remind the audience at home for the December 2nd election, there is no early voting. You can only vote in person or by mail, and we do have a debate coming up on November 25th, the only mayoral debate, and we thank you and Councilman Jabbour for giving us the opportunity to host that debate at Hoboken High School Auditorium from 7 to 8 p.m. But Michael, we have a few seconds left. The floor is yours. What would you like to tell the audience about why they should entrust you with their vote to be their next mayor on December 2nd?
I really believe that this is just a simple choice. I am the future of what Hoboken needs. I am not the past 8 years. I will not stand for the mistakes that we have made over these last 8 years. I'm going to be a mayor for everyone. I'm going to continue to unite this city, and you will see that in the days and the weeks to come. And we will do that well before Election Day and beyond. And I am asking for your vote and your support, not only for me, but for Nicole Magana, Pete Keeling, and Liz Orteco on December 2nd.
Thank you. 3rd Ward Councilman and Hoboken mayoral candidate, Michael Russo. So great to see you. We'll see you in a few weeks at a debate.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Thanks again. All right, folks, we will be right back. Peter Biancamano back with you. Folks, we have a new television home. After being on cable access for so long, we are now strictly on streaming. So download the Surge Sports and Entertainment TV app on your Roku TV or your Amazon Fire TV and catch our new episodes every Sunday at 9 a.m. We will see you there. Welcome back to the Pulse of Peter B. And folks, as we mentioned last month, we do have our resident therapist partner back on the Pulse for a monthly segment. And of course, that's Dr. Pam Pater-Ennis, and she will be covering all of your therapy needs. And today she's going to be talking about, in honor of course, Veterans Day, which was a little earlier this week, mental health needs for veterans. And I'm so glad to send this over to Dr. Pam, who is sitting by in her office over in Teaneck, New Jersey, joined by Rebecca Ennis-Paez, who's a clinical social worker, and Marco Paez, who's a retired Army sergeant. Dr. Pam, it's all yours.
Hi, my name is Dr. Pam. I'm the CEO and founder of Hudson River Care and Counseling, and Peter asked me to be the hostess this morning. So I have with me family, which might seem a little weird, but Veterans Day is coming, and I wanted to feature a service that we're really providing here at Hudson River Care and Counseling. I believe Rebecca and Marco were on the show a couple of years ago, but now they have their children. And what we wanted to feature was services to vets and their families. And we do, by the way, do family services beyond vets, but we wanted to really talk about how veterans and their experience, especially returning military, come back and reintegration to society, come back with a lot of issues of PTSD and other issues, and just children getting reacquainted with their parent. So we wanted to speak to that. So this is Rebecca Ennis-Paez, who also is an LCSW working here at the practices. She's our intake coordinator. And this is her husband, Marco Paez, who is almost a 20-year vet, Marine, right, Marco, and yes. National Guard in the Army. And this is their children, little Marco and Samuel. And I'll let you guys say a little bit more. Marco, could you tell us a little about your experiences of being in the military? I can't do justice to that.
Yes, hi. I worked 6 years in the Marine Corps, Camp Pendleton, as an infantryman and Army National Guard. 10, 12 years. I deployed 3 combat tours to Somalia, Iraq twice. So those are my terms of commitment I did for the Army.
Rebecca, could you tell us about, you are an LSW and you work with trauma, and veteran services are one subset of that. And I think that's, you've shown interest because of your lived experience as a wife of a vet. You want to show how you're going to do that work here now, based on your lived experience.
Yes. So my services, so primarily what I found out during his deployment in 2019 was not a lot of services are offered to spouses. But while the VA does have some services that they offer through family, the wait lists are very, very long, sometimes 2 and 3 years out. And then especially if you were a reservist or a National Guard family, there's even less services.
Right.
So it's a much needed service. And, you know, as a National Guard or reservist family, what I firsthand discovered is you're living off base. You're not, so you're further removed from services being offered.
And you're more isolated.
And more isolated, other than the small group of potential spouses that may go to a group. And those are only monthly from my experience. So it's really not enough and very isolating. And most families don't even understand what you're going through. So by offering not only a support group, but a therapeutic group here in the office for spouses, and potentially in the future, maybe even one for children as well. But as of right now, the plan is to start with a spouse group, which we will be posting online,
and then also work our way into offering a vet support group as well. Marco, I know we talked about this a couple years ago, but what would you say, maybe from your own lived experience or even experience of your buddies, like what are some of the hardest challenges about returning home after deployment?
I'd say like coping with, could say, flashbacks, army flashbacks, or anything
Your
you,
PTSD?
yeah, when you were over there, what you encounter. So when you go back in the civilian world, it's totally different. You know, everything's laid back. You know, you're not on an adrenaline run. Um, everything, family time, dealing with your spouse,
Trying to be
talking.
calm, like bringing
Yeah,
your adrenaline down.
yeah, everything. We're like, we lived in temperatures that were like above 100, so you're always constantly you're on adrenaline, living in those areas, remote areas. So it's tough. I mean, being out there for a year and then coming back home and trying to cope with things,
Like
it's hard.
little
So
things are hard, right?
yeah,
Like little
yeah,
day-to-day family
yeah. You go
things.
through depressions, you go through anxieties, you go panic attacks, things.
And what about, and I know substance abuse is a big issue in a
Oh
lot of
yeah,
the
a
military
lot of people.
community.
Yeah, a lot of friends. That's how they cope.
Yeah,
They
Self-medicate.
self-medication. Yeah.
yeah. Thank you for being so transparent. I know this is very hard. What would you say if in our offering of services to the vets, would be something we would really need to pay attention to, or how could we really encourage people to come to therapy? Because I know it's hard for men, especially, but especially military men, I think, to come to therapy. Not that they're not female vets, but
No, there's a lot of female veterans too. Just talking to somebody, you know, like sometimes you just want to hide away and deal with your own problems. Like,
not to try to encourage them not to isolate.
yes, yes,
Okay. Okay.
talking to somebody, you know, like talking about what's going on, you know, how's your life, you know, calling them,
How's the adjustment going?
how's the adjustment,
And,
keep, you know.
and Rebecca, what about you as a spouse? Like what would you say are the spouse's greatest needs?
The spouse's greatest needs, I think, are a support group to just talk about the difficulties, especially if you are a parent. You are, while you do have financial support from your spouse who's overseas, and there's also housing support as well. So that is helpful. So financially, you may not be feeling it, but you do feel like a temporary single parent. So you're the one who's doing all the running and cooking and cleaning. And I personally was lucky because I had my family close by, but not all, especially if you are living on a base and you're not going to necessarily have that family support.
Okay.
So it's very important to depend on each other and
To readjust to almost co-parenting then.
well, yeah. So
challenge.
when they're returning, that is a big adjustment for the spouse and for the soldier because it's a big adjustment to go from doing everything by yourself and now you have help.
So I think we're going to wrap up, but thank you guys. I know this is a really tender topic for you guys personally, and I think that's what brings the tenderness you can carry over then into your work with the couples or individuals and families, both the vets and the spouses, as well as I said, the whole family. So I really, really thank you for coming in and doing this. Thank you. And Peter, back to you.
All right, Dr. Pam, thank you so much, and we look forward to seeing you next month. All right, folks, join us next week for The Pulse on everything you need to know. I'm Peter Biancamano. I hope you have a great week, everybody.